The First Amendment to the United States Constitution protects freedom of speech. That is, the idea that no law can prevent citizens from openly expressing their opinions. This freedom has frequently been cited as the most important component of a functioning democracy. It's what allows people to protest and whistleblow and generally participate in society. George Washington once said, "If freedom of speech is taken away, then dumb and silent we may be led like sheep to the slaughter." The time when people are usually most eager to speak about political issues is right around election time. Candidates and those who support them want to get their message heard by as many voters as possible. In recent years, this has meant the use of website ads, lawn signs, billboards, and most especially commercials on TV. The problem is, free speech isn't really free, at least not in terms of money. Advertising costs money, sometimes lots of money, and in recent years, elections in the United States have started costing lots of money. The cost of the 2012 presidential election was nearly $6.3 billion. With that money, you could buy 9 top-of-the-line Gulfstream G650 private jets, 5 Carnival cruise ships, 2 Mona Lisas, and the Golden Gate Bridge, and still have a few $100 million left over for gas. And this trend isn't unique to one party or the other, though it is perhaps unique to the United States. The United Kingdom, for example, spends only a fraction of this amount on its elections. But more to the point, all of this money obviously has to come from somewhere, and the need to outspend their opponents leads candidates into desperate fundraising. The easiest way to raise this kind of money seems obvious. Just find some billionaire and ask them to donate their pocket change to buy a few commercials during Wheel of Fortune. However, when a single person donates so much to a campaign, it's easy to worry what that donor would want in exchange once their candidate wins the election. It's like when someone takes you out to dinner before they ask you to cat sit for them. Or when your parents buy you a car and then expect you to drive your little brother around all the time. Everyone who gives something wants something else in return, and when you're dealing with people in the government, that something else can be research grants or tax loopholes or construction contracts, things we generally want our elected officials to be impartial on. This scenario is called a conflict of interest, and to avoid it from happening, the Federal Election Commission has laws governing how much individuals are allowed to donate to campaigns. As of the recording of this video, individuals are allowed to donate $2,700 to a candidate for both the primary election and then again for the general election. While this is a decent amount of money, it's hardly anything when we're talking in terms of billions of dollars. Enter the PACs, Political Action Committees. PACs typically represent the interests of a union or corporation or just a certain idea, and they allow members to pool their resources and donate more money to several different candidates. But even these groups have spending limits. However, if you read the fine print of the FEC rules, you'll see an interesting caveat that independent expenditure-only political committees, sometimes called SUPERPACS, may accept unlimited contributions. The idea behind SUPERPACS is that they don't donate money to any candidate and they're forbidden from coordinating with official campaigns. Because of this, they're mostly exempt from campaign finance rules. However, SUPERPACs are allowed to run their own commercials that promote a certain candidate or agenda, provided this ad includes a disclaimer like,
"American Crossroads is responsible for the content of this advertising."
SUPERPACs owe their existence to a controversial 2009 Supreme Court case, Citizens United vs. FEC, which resulted in a number of changes to campaign finance laws. The ruling most notably struck down a ban on corporations and unions using their funds to run electioneering communications, which are basically any kind of advertising meant to sway an election. The majority arguments in this case largely centered around the importance of freedom of speech. Chief Justice Roberts argued that the First Amendment protects more than just the individual on a soapbox, and that Congress violates the First Amendment when it decrees that some speakers may not engage in political speech at election time when it matters most. The court used this logic to rule that laws preventing corporations from voicing opinions during elections violated the freedom of speech that all citizens have. This adheres to the controversial idea that corporations have the same rights as people. Dissenters in the court argued that this was an extreme interpretation of what freedom of speech means. Justice Stevens used words like inaccurate and profoundly misguided to describe Chief Justice Roberts' logic. The dissenting opinions on this case point out that corporations and unions represent large groups of shareholders or workers, all of whom may not necessarily agree with the message of an ad. He also points out that corporations cannot vote or run for office, and that their basic structure can mean their interests are conflicting with those of human voters. Because SUPERPACs can spend unlimited amounts of money, and they often have the backing of massive corporations, they've been responsible for a large portion of election spending since the Citizens United ruling. As of the recording of this video, the 10 groups that have raised the most money for the 2016 election are all SUPERPACs. There's one final type of group that should be mentioned in this discussion. 501c4 organizations are a type of nonprofit that are supposed to be created for the promotion of social welfare. IRS law prohibits these groups from spending more than half of their money on election advertising, which does limit their impact. But these nonprofits are different from other groups in one big way. They are not required to disclose their donors. This means that the money spent by these organizations running advertising to support or attack candidates could be coming from anyone, even a corporation, anywhere in the world. This has led to worry by some that money from foreign countries is being used to influence United States elections. There are some in Washington who have made noise about overturning Citizens United or passing comprehensive campaign finance reform. However, these efforts have yet to produce anything substantive, and it seems unlikely that any elections in the near future will start costing less. For now, we'll have to grapple with questions like where to draw the line on spending, whether corporations have the same rights as people, and how extensive is our freedom of speech.